Hi, this is Scott, Kilo Sierra 6 Delta Alpha Yankee, and for the purposes of today's video, since we're talking GMRS stuff, also WRTI 407, and what we're going to be talking about today is something that I don't talk about a heck of a lot, and that is mobile radios, and in this particular case, a GMRS mobile radio, which I've definitely never talked about. I don't talk about mobiles all that much because I don't really own a heck of a lot of mobiles. I've got 7 of them total, and of those 7, well, 3 of them are the same model. But I have a lot more HTs, and I tend to focus more on HTs, but I'm neglecting the mobiles, and I shouldn't, because mobiles are just as important as HTs in the world of communications. And for anybody that's kind of moving up through the world of communications, eventually you're going to need a mobile, or you might be shopping for a mobile right now. And I want to present an interesting little mobile to you that might appeal to you. I think I can make a compelling argument in a couple of different ways for it. But it is, of course, the excellent little Wouxun KG-XS20 Golf Plus. The XS20 Golf Plus is a GMRS mobile. It's a 20-watt GMRS mobile, and one of the most interesting things about this, and what particularly appeals to me, is I am a huge fan of the KG-935 Golf. I talk about it endlessly. In fact, I'm getting ready to start an operator series for the KG-935 Golf. But that operator series that I'm going to do on the KG-935 Golf, particularly when we get into the menu and the setup portion and how to program in repeaters and things like that, the interesting thing is everything I show you on that is going to apply equally to this XS20 Golf, because this is, for all intents and purposes, the mobile version of this radio. The menus are the same. The displays are very similar. A lot of things, most of the buttons, although they're in different places, are exactly the same. So making the jump from this one to this one is pretty easy, but that's not the only reason that I'm interested in this radio. Let me go and drop this out for now. This being a 20-watt mobile, initially, there can be some points of confusion. I want to clear a couple of them up real quick. If you have been shopping for a mobile on Amazon, chances are good that you have seen some small form factor mobile rigs made by Retevis, QIT, etc., that have a passing resemblance to this radio. I want to assure you, they are not the same at all. I've seen the different radios, and I've looked at them closely, and they are quite different. Companies like Retevis, companies like QIT, they buy OEM radios that come out of Quansheng or other regional areas in China that focus on manufacturing consumer electronics goods. And what they do is they buy OEM rigs produced by those companies already made up. They just rebrand them and throw a Retevis sticker on it, or a QIT sticker, or a TYT sticker, and out the door they go. Wouxun, this is a different case completely. While there may be a passing resemblance, they are not similar. If you've looked, for instance, at the Retevis DB25 Golf, for instance, it is vaguely similar to this. It's not the same radio. And those radios go for about 125 bucks. This radio is $199.99, effectively $200 from buy two-way radio. So it's a little bit more expensive, but it is worth every bit of the $200 you're going to spend. It's a quality piece of kit. It's a great little radio. Now, one of the other things that's going to pop up is 20 watts. There are going to be some people that are going to say, well, if I'm going to go with a mobile, why wouldn't I go 50? That's a good question. I happen to own a lot of 50-watt mobile rigs. And when I say 50, we're talking radios that usually do 50 in VHF and 40 in UHF, or vice versa, depending on the brand and how it's built. But effectively, 50-watt rig. So if you're going to put a mobile in your vehicle, why would you go with a 20-watt rig versus a 50? Well, it depends on the vehicle, is one thing. But let me talk about 50-watt rigs and some of the benefits and some of the drawbacks of that. Now, 50 watts, of course, if you need to really stretch your legs and make a long-distance contact, that extra wattage is helpful. If you're using a good antenna that's placed well for maximum efficiency, That extra 50 watts is gonna increase that range just a little bit further. It does give you a good bumper. Let you kind of dig your way out of the old sand pit of communications, particularly if you have to blast a signal through some heavy foliage and stuff, and that is helpful. But for my purposes, I find that I generally don't need any more than 20 to 25 watts anywhere in my region to make a decent contact. Now, your region may be different, and that may put this radio completely out of consideration for you. But there's another thing I do want you to consider, and this is where this radio really shines, and unfortunately Wouxun doesn't seem to make a big deal out of this, but they should. When you're using a 50-watt rig, the downsides, yes, you get that additional range, but here's the downsides for that. One of them is power consumption. So if you're using this as a field rig, now this isn't the field rig that this is eventually going to be. This is a temporary solution for me. But if I was using this in the field and I was using it with a portable power pack like this, that 50 watts better be worth it, because it's going to consume a lot of critical power that I have to pack into the field. So I'm always going to use the minimum amount of output wattage to make the contact, so that I don't use energy, or I don't waste energy that I don't have to. So that's a consideration. And when you're using 50 watts, you're going to use a lot more power. So if you're talking an MCOM rig, that's something to consider. But a 50-watt rig, you can always turn it down. No big deal, right? So that's really probably not even that much of a valid argument. But the big thing that comes into play is if you're pumping 50 watts, that 50 watts generates heat, a lot of heat. Enough heat that it requires a cooling fan on the back of the radio and a large opening to get airflow into the radio to cool the working parts of the radio. And that's generally a requirement in almost all cases with a 50-watt rig. However, if you're mounting that mobile in a regular family sedan or a truck, you know, your daily driver, it's generally going to be protected from the elements by virtue of being in an enclosed climate-controlled cabin. But what if you're putting this rig in a trail vehicle, like an open-top Jeep, or a side-by-side like a Razor, or a four-wheel ATV? Now your radio is exposed, and it's exposed to the elements. There's two particular elements that are a problem. One, of course, is going to be moisture. If you're now in that open cockpit vehicle and you're in the middle of a light rainstorm, or you're splashing down a trail, the chances of you getting water in your radio on one of those 50-watt rigs is pretty damn good. The next thing, though, and the big killer, is going to be dust. And that dust is going to get blown right into that radio along with that nice cooling air. And that dust carries with it minerals and sediment that includes conductive materials. And that is going to be a killer for the internal working parts of your radio. So what's called for a trail application is going to be a radio that has some kind of IP rating. This radio, the XS20 Golf Plus, is IP65 rated. Now what that means is it will resist a direct water jet from any direction for a limited time. And that's kind of important. So think in terms of a hose with your thumb over it, any direction, into the speaker grate, into the back, into the screen, and it's going to resist that water getting in there. But secondarily, it's going to resist dust getting in there, because this doesn't have a cooling fan, because it only does 20 watts. It cools itself via a heat sink on the bottom of the radio. So there's no opening, there's no fan on the back that's going to let all that nasty stuff into the radio. So as a vehicle for, or rather as a mobile radio for a trail vehicle, this is excellent. Now, I'm not an off-roader. However, what I needed this for is for MCOM. I'm building an all-weather MCOM rig because something occurred to me one day. I was standing there, and I have a video elsewhere on the channel where I show my MCOM box. It's not this one, but it's a box that looks like this. And I've got the radio set up inside, and I've got all my ports and everything set up so that I can, if it gets rainy, I can close the lid, and everything's sealed, and then when it stops, I can open it up. But you know what I can't do while the radio, or while it's closed? I can't use the damn radio. So really, I'm not doing myself any favors with that kit at all. The second I close it, I'm out of action. I have to go to, you know, something like this. It's a weather-rated HT to do my comms. And right away I realized the complete lack of logic in that package. So I'm building an all-weather MCOM kit. This is the GMRS portion of that kit, and this will be mounted in a rack case, and this will be, like I say, for the GMRS world, this will be it. I have not yet found the radio that I want to use for the ham side of things, for my 2 meter and 70 centimeter comms. Still working on that, but as soon as I do, as soon as I find it, I'll let you know. I kind of wish Wouxun would come out with a version of this that was made for the amateur radio service. That would be awesome, but so far, not yet. So, I think I've talked enough about why, or given you some reasons to consider this radio. Let's talk real quick about some of the features of the radio. As I said, and I'm going to bring this up one more time, basically a mobile version of the KG-935 Golf. So whereas the 935 Golf has the exit button, the band button, the mode button, the TDR, so does this. Now, turn it on and off with a long press of the orange button. That turns it off, and then of course a long press turns it back on. The display, as mentioned, is smaller than the KG-935 Golf, but we have, and we'll start over here, we have our channel control knob, is this one to the right. We also have up-down arrow keys that we can use for the same purpose. We have a menu key, which takes us to a menu that is identical to the one for the 935 Golf. We have our exit button to get out of that. Now, if I go into the menu, I can do all that same stuff with a hand mic. The arrow's on the hand mic key, and I can even exit out. The hand mic, real quick, by the way, I mentioned the IP65 rating for the radio. The hand mic is IP55, which means it's good in the rain, and it will also resist dust, but it doesn't have the same weather protection as the radio itself, but still, it's weather rated. So, getting back to this, of course, we have our band button, and what our band button does, you'll see this little green arrow moves up and moves down, back and forth by pressing the band, and that takes you from area A to area B. That's what those two areas are. Now, this is a dual watch radio. They use the term dual receive. It's not technically a dual receive because it doesn't receive both channels concurrently. What it does is it will watch two separate channels, and when traffic comes in on either one of those channels, you will hear it. However, let's say that area A here, TCRG2 or TCRCG2 is talking. I'm going to hear the entire conversation, and channel 16A may have some traffic, but it's not going to cover that. However, the second I release from here, I'll start hearing this conversation there. Now, you see that little phone that just came up. This little phone symbol, what this does is this indicates the last area that received a communication. So if you're looking away from the display, you hear some traffic, you look back, it tells you which of these areas caught that traffic. So in this case, I'll know, yeah, something came up on channel 16A, and that's the relevant channel. So I may switch my band button, and when that arrow hits there, now I can operate that particular channel, and then I can move back to my primary. Our mode button, that just moves us simply from channel mode or memory mode to frequency mode or VFO. The TDR button, oh no, I've got to press that again. Okay, I pressed it one, too many times. There we are. TDR button, this is toggle dual receive. This is my favorite button on this radio, and I don't know why, but I'm just particularly tickled by it. I think the reason why is I do this a lot on other radios, and I have to go into the menu to make this happen. But let's say I've got these two channels, and I got a lot of traffic going on both of them, and I only want to listen to one. I press this TDR button, and what it does is now just takes us, oops, sorry, bumped the tripod. It takes us to a single line display. So it's only going to monitor that area. Now, that's going to take effect on the active area. So if I'm down in the B area, and I do that, it's going to eliminate that top line. And then I go back, and now I have both of them available. Just kind of a clever, cool little thing. The 935 Golf, of course, has exactly the same button. We have PF1, which is one of two programmable keys. Of course, we have our two programmable side keys on the 935 Golf. We have two on here. We have one here. and we have one on the hand mic just beneath the PTT. Going all the way to the left, we have our volume control knob, and the volume is nice and loud and clear. The speaker is on the top of the radio, and it's always something to consider based on your placement of the radio. You want to make sure that you're not putting it in such a place that's going to cover the speaker. There is a port on the back of the radio for an external speaker as well. Our hand mic plugs into this port here, and it is secured with an actual nut, so it's not going to come out. Unlike some other mobiles that you see that have just a flimsy little data connector, a little plastic data connector that'll snap off if you pull on the cord too hard, this one's going nowhere, and of course it's weather sealed. Getting to the speaker mic is substantial. It does genuinely feel, and I have some mobiles that have speaker mics that are just, my best way to describe them is light in the ass. They basically just feel like they're hollow, flimsy, and pretty minimal. This thing, I'm pretty confident if I grabbed it by the cord, I could beat somebody unconscious with it. It's got a good feel to it. I like it. We have a lot of options here. Basically, your front panel keys that are going to appear on a typical HT. That's where you do this. So if you have to program in frequencies and whatnot, of course, here are your number keys. You have up-down keys to navigate channels or to navigate menu selections. You of course have your menu entry. You have your exit. You can lock things out. You can turn on lamps. A lot of cool stuff there. So very, very fully featured. Now let's go to the back of the radio real quick, and I'll show you just a couple of things here. Of course, we have our typical antenna connection on the back. Of course, as with any mobile, the choice of antenna is up to you. Now, don't hate on me for the cable that's going into this, the antenna that's on this, because this is, I'm just in the office here. I have this hooked up to a mag mount that's mounted on a steel piece to my left here, and this is just a typical mag mount antenna cord. I tend to use better stuff. I use LMR 400 when I actually hook this up to my field antenna. And we have, I'll draw your attention right here, and here's those heat sinks I was mentioning earlier that cool the radio. But this cover that has the screws, this is your data port. This is what you would use for computer programming or using a CPS to program via computer on the radio. And for that, you are going to need a programming cable, and you're going to need the Wouxun programming cable for this. And it does have a little data connector on here. So this is pretty proprietary. Now, if you have a Wouxun KG-1000 Golf or one of the KG, I believe it's the 980, they all use the same programming cable. It's not terribly expensive, but you're going to need to buy one. However, this is easily programmable from the hand mic. In fact, I didn't buy the programming cable for a couple of months, and I had this thing fully programmed in one evening. We have an external speaker port under this cover right here, and that's really about it on the back of the radio. Moving back around to the front. Should have put this on a little Lazy Susan. It would have been a little easier to move around. What comes with the radio is pretty extensive. Now let me go ahead and turn this off. You see the box is wedged up behind there, and of course in there you get the radio, you get the bracket, you get the side screws and a hand mic. You get two power connection cords. You get one that's a typical cigarette lighter cord. Now that's perfectly fine in a power box like this because the power box doesn't have an alternator attached to it, and this is also going to deliver the amperage necessary to run the radio. I caution you against using this in a vehicle application and just simply plugging that into your cigarette lighter in your car. I know they're not called cigarette lighters anymore, but I don't know what to call them, so I'm going to call them cigarette lighters, but we all know what we're talking about. Couple of things with those. Those generally are designed to produce the wattage to typically run a cigarette lighter. They oftentimes produce less wattage than you would get from going directly to the battery, and thus you might run into some applications where you get poor performance from the radio. The radio may actually cut out because it doesn't have the operating amperage that it needs to actually run the radio. The other thing that's going to happen is going through that cigarette lighter adapter, the way the wiring is routed, it's going through a fuse box, and you're going to get alternator noise and all kinds of artifacts that are going to come through on your signal. I recommend, in all cases, if you're going with a vehicle application, to mount directly to the battery. And if that's the case, they give you plenty of wiring to mount that to the battery. And in fact, this is how classy Wouxun is. They already have the points here tinned. So if you wanted to run this into a power supply on your desk, like an Astron, it's already tinned, so you can go into the connectors on the back of the Astron. Again, always with just clever, cool little touches. Never ceases to amaze me. Wouxun is a badass radio company. And then you get a little bag that has your screws, some extra fuses, and of course you have a bracket for your microphone that you can use this little disc to hang it on. So all the typical stuff that a mobile comes with. And it also comes with Wouxun's typically very good user manuals. And of course, it's fully supported in terms of being able to download those user manuals from the website. The CPS is downloadable from Wouxun as well. This is not, unlike the KG-935 Golf, this is not supported by Chirp, which is surprising because they're kind of the same. The CPSs are identical. So, you know, and I haven't tried it either, but I don't want to mess around and brick the damn radio. The factory CPS is sufficient enough. And as I stated earlier, we have a 999 memory channel capacity on here. Now, I have a total of, I believe it's 84 GMRS channels set up. And one other thing I'll mention is I'm big on memory banks and being able to allocate memory channels into smaller, useful chunks. This allows you to do that kind of. It's a little clunkier than Yaesu's scheme, for instance, but you can allocate channels into scan groups, and the scan groups is 10 of them, and they're basically channels 0 through 99, 100 through 199, 200 through 299, etc. for a total of 10 100 channel blocks. You can set up 2 dedicated scan groups at a time: scan group A, scan group B, which of course you are going to monitor through area A and area B on your display, and those can be any of the 10. Now I by default just go with the first 2. I go channels 0 to 99 are all of my GMRS channels, and channels 100 through 199 are all of my relevant local public safety channels, and then the remaining 800 channels are various nefarious stuff from all over the place. I monitor some ham stuff and a lot of different things, but I'm not even close to filling up 999 memory channels on this, but it's nice to have it. So yeah, as I said, you can set this up any old way you want it. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can mention. I think that's kind of about it. You will be getting more information on this, though, because I want to kind of preview something that's going to be occurring this week. Is I'm coming out with an operator series on the KG-935 Golf. Like the other operator series that I've done, what I'm going to be doing is doing a super deep dive into every feature of this radio, or pretty much every feature of the radio, and showing you how to set it up, a lot of different things that you can do on it, and just kind of go through and show how to do everything and execute everything from the front panel without having to hook this up to a computer anywhere. And I'm going to do that for the KG-935 Golf. The good news is everything that I show you for the 935 Golf will apply to the KG-XS20 Golf and 20 Golf Plus. As I said, the only difference is going to be where the actual keys are on the radio. They're going to be in different places, but the layout and the menu exactly the same. So it'll be kind of a 2-for-1 sort of deal. So with that, I will bring it to a close. And as a reminder, I got this from Buy Two-Way Radios. It was $199.99. And I recommend those guys. They're pretty darn good. I've not had a single negative experience with them. And then Wouxun, of course, as a radio company itself, God, I'm becoming such a fan of Wouxun radios. Haven't got a bad one yet. They're pretty darn good all the way across the board. So I will thank you for watching and or listening. This is Scott, Kilo Sierra 6, Delta Alpha Yankee, and also WRTI 407 from Visalia, California. Have a wonderful day.